Mass Effect.
What's going on, everyone? Brock from Brock and Sindri back again with another Mass Effect Monday. Last week we were fixing some of the wrongs, if you like, from Mass Effect 3 to help set up our sequel and setting the stage, really. And so what we've done is we have, as a quick recap, we have said that Shepard has gone missing after basically fusing himself or herself with the Crucible to form this sort of weapon, a la, I guess, maybe Power Rangers, giant Zord, if you like, but basically a weapon that has, you know, a laser that is able to kill Reapers in one shot. And so he started doing that, or she started doing that, and chasing them out of the galaxy and back into dark space. And it's not clear whether he or she killed them all, or that some of them retreated. It's not clear whether they decided that they would just skip the rest of this cycle and wait another 50,000 years to come back, or whether they basically decided, all right, we're not having that for our survival, we're done, or they all died. But what is clear is that Shepard disappeared. No trace of the Crucible or Shepard has been found since. We are saying that Cerberus was not as powerful as what it was portrayed in Mass Effect 3, that it was still a bit of an annoyance and it still grew in power and influence, but that the elusive man didn't appear at the Crucible, wasn't killed, and that Cerberus instead decided to focus their attention on the Andromeda project. Now, we're also then saying that the Krogan genophage was indeed cured, not sabotaged. We are saying that Geth and Quarians have set aside their differences and been united. And we are saying that the universe, or the galaxy in general, I should say, is much more united, and that was Shepard's legacy. We're saying that essentially Ashley Williams or Liara for male Shep and Kaidan or Liara for femme Shep are canon options as the romance partner. And we're also finally saying that we've gone 20 to 25 years in the future from the end of Mass Effect 3. So there's a rebuild across the galaxy following the Reaper War. Okay, so there we are. Now, first thing to mention is that the Crucible used the Citadel as part of it. So what we've got is we've got a rebuilt Citadel, this time by the Council races. The, Asari, Salarian, Krogan, Turian, humans, etc. So we've got a rebuilt Citadel, which largely resembles the previous one, but it's slightly larger and with some very slightly different design elements, which we won't necessarily need to go into just yet, but it's very slightly different. But it's basically been largely rebuilt from some of the plans and studies that have been done over the centuries and millennia since discovering it. So that's the first thing. On the Citadel, this rebuilt Citadel, is already starting to be repopulated with people that lived on it, and with more coming there from some of their torn up planets. So a lot of the planets are not now as habitable as was before due to the nuclear and Reaper invasions. So there is now a lot more crime on the Citadel, and actually in some wards more closely represents Omega, which never got attacked by the Reapers, which has been going from strength to strength in the 20 to 25 years. There's still only one rule on Omega, and that one rule is don't fuck with Aria. Aria's still going. She still looks exactly the same. She's basically aged in human years. She's aged like 1 year, equivalent in that 20 to 25 years. So she's basically the same. Now on the Citadel, there are more species on the Council now. There are still human, Salarian, Turian, and Asari. But we also now have a Krogan, a Batarian, and a Volus, and a Quarian. So there are, is that 8 main species? And now the Krogan are on there because of, services rendered over the years. The Volus are on there because of the same. The Quarians are on there because of the same, and the Batarians managed to get on there because they didn't, not by choice obviously, but they had their homeworld sacrificed by the Human Alliance to prevent an early Reaper invasion as it came out. So they were honoured with their sacrifice by being able to be part of the member of the Council. And it's also as a political move because the Terminus systems with Omega as the sort of pseudo capital has been growing in power, and the council's power had been waning, and also because the council had nowhere to call home for many years as the citadel was being rebuilt. It probably took around 10 to 15 years to rebuild the citadel, and it then has taken another sort of 5 to 10 years to repopulate toward high levels as before. So the game basically opens whichever choice that you made, or you decided, whether you were fem shep and you chose to like Liara, or whether you chose Caden, or if you're a male shep and you chose Liara, you chose Ashley. This is going to affect who you now control in the new game. Probably guessing it by now, but you're going to control the offspring of Shepherd and the romantic interest. And what that means is, if Liara was your interest, you're controlling an Asari. So that's who you're going to be. You're going to be the offspring of Shepherd, who's an Asari. If you chose Caden or Ashley, the offspring is going to be a human again. And you'll have the choice of, male or female. You're going to be Shepherd, and you're actually going to start, and it's going to be a very similar story to Garrus's to begin with. You're actually going to start as a CSEC officer on Citadel. That you had done your alliance training before, and you'd come to the Citadel because your mother or your father, if you're a human, is the second ever human Spectre, and is still a Spectre, and is now the oldest or longest serving human Spectre. And so you are in CSEC, you've done your training, but you've come to the Citadel, and you're a disruptive sort of CSEC officer where you're putting results before process. So CSEC has kind of gone back to where it was before, where process and laws and ribbons and red tape and all the rest of it are the right way forward, and you do it right or you don't do it at all. Whereas you follow in Garrus's mindset, which is to get the results, and when you know that someone's done wrong and needs to be dealt with, you need to deal with them. So you're not fully rogue and you're not fully renegade yet, but you are a little bit young, a little bit naive, a little bit hot-headed, and you want to get the results, basically. This puts you in, obviously, at loggerheads with the executor and the higher-ups. So the game basically starts out and you get put onto a mission, and that mission is to investigate a Vermeer-like facility which is producing or recreating a new species, or a perceived new species that has been reported. Because it's actually in the Terminus systems that this is happening, again, the council cannot be seen to be going to the Terminus systems, because that would be considered an act of war, because it's basically now almost two political fragments of the galaxy. You have the council space still, and you have the Terminus systems, and as I said, the Terminus systems are now just as powerful as the council space, and so the council go there, Terminus systems may not like it. But this is the main sort of feud, if you like, of this particular time of the rebuild. Terminus systems were under slightly less attack, and as a result, they did have attacks, don't get me wrong, but as a result, they weren't as negatively impacted. There was a power vacuum with the Citadel gone for so long, and Thessus, Earth, Palaven, Tachanka, all of these had been so heavily bombarded by Reapers that they weren't as strong as they once were. So they decide instead they're going to give you a sort of Spectre-light mission in which you are going to go and investigate the Terminus systems to find out what the hell's going on. So that you need to wonder if the galaxy is going to have this threat from a new species, and what the new species is. To do so, you are going to be given a human Spectre escort, if you like, or overseer, a bit like in the first Mass Effect game with Nihilus and Shepard. And the human Spectre that you're going to be given is not your mother or father, then you're not going to have that, but it's going to be let's say the renewed personality of Miranda Lawson from the original games, which is obviously going to survive in canon now too. And Miranda became a Spectre not long after the Reaper War, when she was inspired by Shepard, so to the point where she had obviously completely lost any hope in Cerberus. And she did that obviously after the Collector base attack, but she even more so during the events of Mass Effect 3, where Cerberus had just gone off the rails a bit more. And she's like a totally different person now because of post-war, because of being free and being able to just be who she is supposed to be, and she's a lot more at peace. She's obviously a very strong biotic, so whether you're an Asari with your biotics, or whether you're a human with biotics or not, she's a very good sort of mentor character in the first game. So that's what I would start it with. And it's a way that, because we're 20 to 25 years in the future, there are characters that we can bring back and we can either do for some cameos, but we're also going to build up some new characters as well. And some of these characters are going to have links back to old characters. So the big question is, who would some of the squad mates be? And the good news on that is that I have some suggestions, and I would be keen to hear if you guys have any suggestions as well. But let me go through my list of the characters that I'm suggesting for squad mates. And so the squad mates that I'm suggesting are that you start with 2 of your CSEC sort of partners. Yeah, so essentially because of your training, you came in like slightly above rank. Like, you're not just like a grunt or someone that just takes full orders from everyone, but you do take orders from above. So you have your 2 sort of squad mates are a female Turian named Thessala and a human male named Max. And basically they're your sort of 2 partners / best friends as well. And you can obviously recruit other characters throughout the game. So Miranda is a squad mate at one point, despite the fact that she's sort of overseeing your mission, she can be used as a squad mate. You also can recruit throughout the game Grunt of Mass Effect 2 and briefly Mass Effect 3 fame as well. Being a Krogan, they're obviously long-lived just like the Asari, and therefore Grunt would only be himself maybe 30, maximum 30 years old in the game, despite being basically fully grown when he was tank-born. But he's obviously ascended through the Krogan ranks. Another one that I'm suggesting is Kolyat. Now, Kolyat is the son of Thane Krios, who's the Drell assassin that you recruit in Mass Effect 2 and, spoiler alert, dies in Mass Effect 3. And we're keeping all of that sort of canon in there, but Kolyat had been trained as an assassin, but Thane basically didn't want him to do it. He wanted to save his son from that sort of a life. And he did, successfully, but Kolyat, being inspired by Shepard and by Thane, in the end, decided that he could put that training to some good use and, protect those that need protection. And Kolyat has basically been loyal to the Shepard family ever since, and so Kolyat can be recruited as a favor. He's now around the age, let's call it around the age that Thane would have been in Mass Effect 2, so he can be recruited from that regard. And there's another squad member that I'm going to suggest, and if you are familiar with the books, it's Arya Talok's daughter named Lenestes. And again, there are some reasons behind that, but again, you want an Asari squad member. Even if you're an Asari yourself, you want an Asari squad member. So Lenestes will obviously, all of these characters are designed to be good squad mates, but also to have character development and world building qualities and some, I guess, links, if you like, between first trilogy and this, which will be a trilogy in my books, and sort of fill some of the gaps in terms of what has happened between then and now, especially given that some of them obviously have properly lived through them, and some of them are sort of new characters to the games would be in this one, but they've obviously lived through them in their own ways too. So there's that. But the aim is that there's going to be other characters that you could have as squad mates that would be maybe temporary ones, and some of them may be 1 or 2 sort of missions with, say, a Garrus, who would be now sort of like a older statesman, if you like, a bit older. He would be sort of like Uncle Garrus, if you like. Maybe you could also have a Liara, whether she's your mother or not, depending on the story. And maybe, there are certain story beats. Now, one of the story beats that I'm going to suggest is that Rex dies of old age during the course of this trilogy. I don't know exactly when, but that could be a story beat, Rex's funeral, and what happens now to the Krogans with that power void, and does Grunt want to try and step up to try and, go in there, and what happens there. So there's a lot going on with this. Now, what are we going to do for loyalty? Now, loyalty missions are fantastic, but a singular mission sort of is a bit cheap, if you ask me. So I think loyalty needs to be a loyalty arc, and they did a little bit of this with Andromeda, but not enough by my book. So I think loyalty arc, that there needs to be several different things that you have to do, several missions that lead to getting full loyalty. This allows for room for character growth like crazy. It also allows for you to get to know your squad well and actually start to, excuse the language, but give a shit about them, which I think is important. And as I said, in Mass Effect 3, there's a couple of characters in particular in that it was hard to give a shit about because you didn't have loyalty missions in that game. And so, Ashley and or Caden, if he was in it, and Garrus and Tali and Liara and maybe Edie, you could care about them. But you couldn't, it was harder to care about James and Javik, for example, because they were brand new characters to the game and you just didn't have the same relationship with them. So I'm proposing loyalty arcs, maybe 3 to 5 sort of different missions of various types that you have to do with them to get there. So that's my proposition, and the proposition of the main part of the story is that obviously it's the rebuild of the galaxy post Reaper attack, that the Terminus systems has gained power and favor, and Arya is basically queen of almost the galaxy at this point. And she's not trying to be, she doesn't want that, that's not her thing, that's just how it's happening, bearing in mind that she just wants to run Omega. She's happy with that, but in any case, it's sort of happening with outside of her wants, because she's running Omega, and Omega is the pseudo capital of the Terminus systems. The Citadel and Council space are starting to rebuild. They're concerned that there's reports of a Vermeer-like facility in the Terminus systems that is producing a whole new species. What could that species be? Well, that new species is the Protheans. Javik has opened or found some more life pods from his time that had actual Protheans there. And whilst when you find him, you have to be concerned about whether this is a threat. And at first you meet some Protheans that do try and shoot you and kill you, but it turns out that is just because they didn't know either, but they are being taught by Javik and by Liara, depending on whether Liara is your mother or not, that about what's been happening since they've been on ice, basically, and that they're actually not as bad as you might think, and that they're not the actual enemy, and the enemy does start to show itself in the second game, and we'll go into that in another video. But that's sort of the basic premise. There would be a lot more into it. Obviously, if it was being made, you would have a lot more subplots and a lot more other stuff happening, but that is basically my core suggestion for Mass Effect 4, the sequel. What do you guys think? Is that something that would be interesting to you? Would you add or take away from that? I should also finish off, actually, before I close out this video, and say, now's the time to address what I haven't yet stated. Is OG Shep still alive? Because I've only said that he's or she is missing. And we're going to rip that band-aid off and say he's not alive. She's not alive anymore. At one point during the game, would be given the choice, a bit like finding the Normandy crash site, if you like, and laying dog tags. You actually get a sort of mission where you get some clues and you follow to find Shepard's whereabouts. So you sort of have to track it and whatever else, and you actually do find that he or she has basically is found in a spot in the galaxy, and you find the body and it's dead. Definitely dead and cannot be revived. Not like the Lazarus Project, it cannot be revived. So you get to have the sort of funeral moment in this game, which is maybe why you do Rex's one in another game. But you would absolutely need that Shepard's legacy lives on. You're a Shepard. However, the Shepard cannot be revived. The characters can be there. The legacy can be there. A lot of things can be there. Maybe the way he lives on is that before the eventual death, he or she was able to record messages for you and for whoever through the Crucible system, like something in a Citadel, maybe like a Omni tool or something, and you get to you play some messages after this and start to get some moments to process and to actually be able to grieve, and for the fans of the games alike to finally get that closure. But Shepard is gone, but the legacy of Shepard lives on. The legacy of that squad, the Normandy, lives on, and there's a process to it, and you now are the offspring of Shepard. You are the new Shepard. You are your own person, but you still have elements of Shepard with you, and you have to find your own way. And it's a coming of age where you start slightly younger than what OG Shepard did in Mass Effect, but you are there to create your own path and to choose whether you are going to be more Renegade or more Paragon, just the same, but with a bit more depth to it. And the basic core of this game is you're coming of age, you're breaking out from CSEC where you feel constrained by the rules, a bit like Garrus, and you've got to find a potential threat in the galaxy, a bit like OG Shep. And does it work out in the same way? Does it play out? No, it doesn't. What is the real threat? That's my basic premise. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Is that something that interests you as a core concept? Obviously needs some fleshing out, but that's what it is. Look forward to speaking to you guys on this one very soon, and check out in the next few weeks. I'm going to be coming out with my Mass Effect 5, the next game, the middle of this trilogy. Hopefully it's a bit of an Empire Strikes Back moment, and we will see you for another Mass Effect Monday.